When the NBA draft concludes, almost all of the talk afterward is about where all of the big names at the top of the draft have gone and how big of a difference maker they can become there, because more often than not, the players at the top of the draft tend to have the highest star potential and become the most productive players, but it's definitely not always the case. Every year we see several guys slip into the second round that displayed more than enough talent to justify taking them in the first round, and when they get a chance to prove themselves in the NBA, they outperform all expectations in a big way, leaving many asking how they were only second-round picks in the first place. This brings us to the topic of today's video, where we'll be discussing 6 second-round picks in particular from the 2020 NBA draft that, in my opinion, have the talent to produce at a higher level than a lot of the first-round picks selected, and become valuable members of a rotation in the NBA. Before we start though, it turns out about 68% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, because not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first second-round stud that we'll be discussing is actually the first player selected in the second round, being Tyrese Terry, taken 31st overall by the Dallas Mavericks. Terry dropping into the second round was really baffling for me, because there were rumors he could have been taken as high as a late lottery pick, and honestly, if that happened, I wouldn't have been surprised at all, because he's that talented of an offensive player. Terry's one of the best shooters in the entire draft, making 41% of his threes last season at Stanford, and his ability to shoot off the dribble, spot up, and create in the pick and roll have made him one of the most productive guards in the country, and he has everything that NBA guards need on that end. I especially love the fact that he landed in Dallas, because with Seth Curry gone now, I strongly believe Terry could do well in that same kind of role that Seth had, as a secondary playmaker, go-to shooter, and pick and roll operator. Terry is admittedly a bit undersized as a skinny prospect that will need to put on weight in order to hold his own on defense, but offensively, his value will be proven for sure. The next second-round stud we'll be discussing is Cassius Winston, who was selected 53rd overall and then traded to the Washington Wizards. Winston has been one of the best players in college basketball throughout the majority of his 4-year career, but in the eyes of NBA scouts, older 4-year prospects tend to always get the short end of the stick. To put it simply, Winston can flat out shoot the basketball as a career 43% three-point shooter, similar to Terry, who we just discussed. But where Winston has him beat is in regards to just how good of a floor general he is at the point guard position. He brings tremendous leadership, playmaking, shot creation, and he just knows how to run an offense at a high level. No, he doesn't have the elite athleticism or quickness NBA scouts fall in love with, and he also is a bit undersized, but ultimately at the point guard position, IQ tends to beat out physical attributes, and Winston is one of the smartest players in the whole class. On the Wizards, he could step right in as the team's backup point guard behind John Wall, and if the team actually trades John Wall away, like they reportedly are looking to do, then he could step in and manage as the team's starter without missing a beat. The next second-round stud that we'll be discussing is one of the most interesting prospects in the class, being Jay Scrubb, who was selected 55th overall and then traded to the Los Angeles Clippers. Scrubb took one of the most unusual routes to the NBA, actually managing to get drafted straight out of junior college. He was the best JUCO prospect in the country, and instead of transferring to a big-time D1 program like most in that situation do, he went right to the draft, and obviously he impressed enough at that level to make it worth it, because he did hear his name get called. Scrubb is a very versatile power forward that can expose mismatches there because of his ability to create his own offense, handle the ball, shoot from the perimeter, and attack the basket. He's an explosive athlete with a 40-inch vertical, and when he drives to the rim, he takes it hard, embraces contact, and finishes through it. All around, he's a very balanced player that can produce in a bunch of different ways, and even though he hasn't really played against top competition yet, I believe in his talent translating to the NBA. The next second-round stud we'll be discussing is Nico Manion, who got taken 48th overall by the Golden State Warriors. Manion came into the college season as a highly touted 5-star prospect with hopes of landing in the lottery, but after a very sporadic and inconsistent season at Arizona, his stock took a bit of a nosedive. But the fact that he landed in Golden State honestly seemed like the perfect fit to get the most out of him and his talent. He had efficiency issues in college, but he is a naturally gifted scorer and playmaker, and I wasn't necessarily that put off by the down year as much as most others were, and I think in the right system, he can be a highly effective player, and the Warriors could be exactly that. Learning behind Steph Curry will help him develop tremendously, and he's a smart player who makes those around him better. I can fully admit that he needs to add some weight, he needs to improve defensively, and his scoring needs to be more consistent. But in terms of raw talent, he's a worthwhile project for a franchise known for development like the Warriors are. The next second-round stud we'll be discussing is Grant Riller, who was selected 56th overall by the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets had a tremendous draft all around, and it's not just because they landed LaMelo Ball with the 3rd pick. Grant Riller is a player with legitimate first-round talent that, as has been a common theme in this video, suffered from being a 4-year older prospect. Grant Riller is a flat-out bucket getter who put up 22 points per game at College of Charleston last year, and he did it on impressive efficiency, making over 50% of his shots. He's a 3-level scorer with unbelievable touch and craftiness around the basket, making him one of the most efficient drivers of the basketball in all of college, making nearly 60% of his 2-point shots. Sometimes overthinking things comes back to bite for teams in the draft, and honestly, way too many players that can simply play at a high level get skipped over in favor of potential, but Riller is the kind of player that will be able to translate flawlessly to the NBA game and make an impact in the Hornets rotation this year. And finally, the last second-round stud that we'll be discussing is Jahmius Ramsey, selected 43rd overall by the Sacramento Kings. Ramsey is a weird one to analyze because he's got the youth, the physical attributes, and the athleticism that teams love, all while having a pretty productive year at Texas Tech last season, yet he slipped well into the second round. He put up 15 points and shot about 43% from 3 last year, which is excellent production and efficiency, and his strong body and explosiveness should be things that teams could work with moving forward as a development project, but his weaknesses really made teams more nervous than I believe they should have been. His shot selection at times may have been poor, and at the moment, he's not the best at using his strength to finish at the rim at a high level, but that doesn't mean that he never will be, especially at just 19 years old. He's the exact kind of potential pick that usually gets praise, but now the Kings might have just gotten themselves a gem of a development project at the shooting guard position, especially with Bogdanovic and possibly Buddy Hield leaving the Kings this offseason. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who else you think will prove to be a great player from the second round of this year's draft. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.